In the heart of the desert of the country of wind, fortified by high walls of rock, was the hidden village of Tsunade, home of the sand ninjas. Things hadn't been going well for their village. They were still rebuilding their forces after the failed invasion plan with the Sound Village. But it wasn't totally their fault, as their cage had been in reality Orochimaru. The body of their real cage had finally been found, and the funeral had been held for him and their fallen ninjas. The village mourned the losses that had been suffered and also shamed at how they had been manipulated. In the center of the village, in the largest of structures, the council elders were in a meeting discussing the future of the village. In a large room with statues of all the past leaders against one wall, there was a long table with all the leaders of the village. They were discussing candidates for who the future cage would be, how to deal with such a loss of manpower as well. They were in for some rough times, as they had to keep up appearances that they weren't as weakened as they were. Another village might take advantage of that weakness, and like all villages, they needed the income from the people who hired them. Those who paid well went to the villages with the most strength, and a weak village didn't get as much business. But there was another matter on the table, and that was how to firmly cement their alliance back with Konoha. They had been allies and had betrayed them. That was something that wouldn't be forgotten easily, and they needed to make up for it and prove their commitment to the new alliance. They already agreed that the Sound Village would be a mutual enemy, but they felt something else was needed. We need to prove to them that we are committed to the alliance, an elderly man in robes spoke. The Leave village did suffer losses, but even at 2-to-1 odds they still came out on top. Despite their own losses, they are still stronger than our village, and if they don't trust us and feel we are only buying time to rebuild, they might think we're planning to attack them again, another member said somberly. After our attack on them, I wouldn't be surprised if certain members are planning to attack us to wipe out a possible enemy or for revenge. I still find it hard to believe that they were able to repulse the attacks by 2 villages, one member said. Give it a rest, said an annoyed elder. We were led to believe they were weak and we were proven wrong. So now we have to think of a way to make a solid alliance with them. Yes, although they are now currently in the same state as we are in, looking for a new leader. A man said, looking at reports on the matter. Apparently they went Jiraiya to look for his old teammate, Tsunade. She would be a perfect choice, although I thought she left the village not wanting to return. If she does return, then Konoha will have a powerful leader. She's related to the first 2 Hokages and is a legend herself. With her as a leader, their village will soon start to rebuild itself, and we still haven't agreed on a new Kazekage. When did he depart to look for Tsunade? One asked his fellow council member with the reports. It says that he was spotted outside the village. That's odd. Apparently he's taken in a young genin with him. The reports weren't clear, but from what our sources have stated, it appears that he's taken on a new apprentice. The man looked through his reports for a name for the boy. Apparently it's someone named Naruto. Wait, did you say Naruto? Another member said as he suddenly went looking through several sheets of paper he had in front of him. Is it a Naruto Uzumaki? The man blinked and looked at the report he had. Yes, that's his name. He was the one that defeated Gaara, he told them all, and they all looked shocked at the revelation. Are you sure? Someone asked. The report was by Temari herself, as she was a witness, the man said, looking at the report in question. From her accounts, when the Uchiha couldn't damage Gaara, the Uzumaki boy used what was referred to only as a unique move, to cause a lot of damage to him with an exploding kunai. Then somehow made, by her accounts created, more clones than she could count, but she estimated something close to 1,000 shadow clones. 1,000. No one can make that many. A few other mummers agreed to that. While that is highly unlikely, the man said who had been reading the report. But the boy did somehow manage to beat Gaara, and it is listed on his official report that he does know the shadow clone technique. When first I heard, I had a few people look into him. He's largely unknown, an orphan boy of unknown parentage. He was regarded highly by the Third Hokage for unknown reasons. He was said to be dead last of his class, and yet he knows an advanced Jonin move and was on a mission that went to a class, which was also the mission that had the demon of the mist himself. That started many murmurs among the council now, although what they didn't know the circumstances of that mission, but what they did know was starting to painting a picture about Naruto. Do you think that the Leaf Village is hiding his true power? I mean, he has no real past and yet he's shown great promise, regarded by the late Hokage, defeated Gaara, who I thought was impossible. And now it seems that Jiraiya himself has taken him under his wing too. A man spoke up. This boy seems ordinary and yet there are all these things that make no sense, he added as the others started to think about this. The boy is obviously a hidden ace for their village, one member said after thinking about all of this. There is no way someone with this kind of school record that you mentioned could have done the things it says here. He comes out of the academy with an A-class jutsu, can use it to make an unheard of number of clones, took out one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist and defeated Gaara. His school record was obviously fake to throw everyone off. I agree, the boy must be a genius. A natural talented ninja, and with Jiraiya there's no telling how strong this boy will become. Hell, his team sensei is Kakashi Hatake too, it says here, one member said, pointing to a piece of his copy of the reports. If this boy is any indication, he could be the next Yellow Flash. Aren't you being a little overdramatic? Of course not. He shouted back at him, think about all this and the fact that Jiraiya trained the Yellow Flash himself and Jiraiya was taught by their third Hokage too. There's no telling what the boy will learn, and if he's already this strong, imagine what he'll be like as an adult. There was a silence there in the room at this. The thought of another ninja as powerful as the Yellow Flash in Konoha was a freighting thought. Even as allies, the Yellow Flash was a named, respected and feared by many ninjas who remembered that man. The fact that they could be seeing a return of a ninja of that skill would be dangerous. If Konoha ever decided that they weren't faithful to their alliance, a war could be very devastating to them. Everyone remembered how brutally the Rock Ninjas had been beaten in the last Ninja War. It might not be so far-fetched. The one that had read Temari's report on Gaara's defeat spoke up. It said that the boy already could summon the toads. In fact, she described the one of the ones she called the size of a small mountain. It was all red, had on a vest with scars on the body and carried a sword. There is only one toad I can think of that describes that. He didn't have to say it, as everyone knew the chief of the toads just by his description. There weren't many toad summons that could even come close, and it seemed even more likely that Jiraiya was now training a new protege, a new ninja that could rival his last apprentice. If the boy had already signed the contract, the boy was obviously already on his way there. This could be bad for us, one of the older members spoke up, feeling his age at the moment. If they have a secret weapon in the makings, one I might add that trumped our own weapon, we must prove the depths of our alliance with them now more than ever. How? We've already agreed to some restitutions to help them rebuild the damage to the village, a man to his left said. He nodded his head to that point. Yes, but I do have an idea. It might two birds with one stone and even be beneficial to us if things can go perfectly down the years. What are you talking about? He continued on, simply, we put in for the bonding alliance contract with them. Everyone remembered that old ritual, mainly when two villages or countries had been at war and one side lost, there was a way to cement the peace. It mainly said that the loser would offer up a prodigious member of that group to marry into the victor's forces. It was a way to show commitment on both parts. That might work, a member said, thinking about it. It hadn't been done in a while, but there is precedent for it. If we make an offer to the Konoha Council, they might accept, but we need to ensure that they would. But who would we pick? It would have to be someone close to the boy's age, but also someone upstanding, or else the offer could not even be looked at. Names were thrown out as to whom could it be, but when someone actually suggested Temari herself, that caused a bit of talk. I don't think we should give her up, someone said. She's one of our most potential ninja, she's the eldest child of our late Kage himself. Plus, if the boy is as powerful as we think he could be, then any children they would have would be just as strong, if not stronger. Yes, it would, but that would entice their council to accept. That's why it's a good idea. No, it isn't. We wanted to ensure a peace, not give another village a family of powerful ninja. Hear me out. First, it would give them incentive to accept the offer, and yes, it would create that. But they would have family in Tsunade, making it harder for them to fight against our village. And if they are that powerful, they would most likely become even a Hokage at one point. If they had strong ties to our village, we could rest easy. That made the council think on matters. It would be true if it happened. Having a strong family of ninjas that has strong ties to their village would be something that could benefit them down the road. It was also offered that maybe one of their children could be married off to someone in their own village. That way, whatever strong bloodline that would be produced could also be started in Tsunade as well. That was what sealed the deal for the council. Everything, if it worked out, would benefit their village. They would have a strong alliance with one of the strongest villages, and possible strong allies in the future, and even future stronger ninjas for them down the road too. Preparations were made to send an official deal to Konoha as soon as possible. Konoha Council. A few days later, the Konoha Council was in session. Since there was still no Hokage, they needed to help run the village as best they could. They did have limited power, though. They couldn't institute policy or wage war, or anything like that. They couldn't accept missions that were or S rank and only certain B rank missions. But they did have to help with the rebuilding of the village and with relief efforts as well. At the moment, 3 of the most influential members of the council were meeting with each other. 2 were an elderly male and woman, both had been teammates to the late 3rd Hokage, the other however had been a thorn in the 3rd's side for years. He was a tall man in robes and bandages covering his face and walked with a cane. He was Danzo, the war hawk of the village, as it was said. He was a more militaristic influence, and even though he had no official office in the council anymore, many still listened to his counsel. Homura Mitokado, the old woman, was currently sipping her tea as she watched Koharu Utatane read the letter that was to be sent to the council that afternoon from Tsunade. The old man's face was an emotionless mask as he read it carefully, trying to read it to see if there was any hidden meaning in it. She had done it herself, and she felt that even though the Tsunade Council was being upfront, they were still hoping for something to come of this. Danzo had already read it and was looking out a window, lost in his own thoughts. Homura finally let out a sigh and put it down. Your thoughts? She asked him. It seems they want to establish stronger ties with us. After all, they did violate the last treaty we had. Yes, although they were manipulated into it by that traitor Orochimaru, she pointed out. Agreed, although many still hold resentment over them with all the losses. Also, not one of them ever seemed to have spoken out against the plot as well, which does not do them any favors. He paused for a moment, thinking about what to say next. Although this would help heal that rift and the person they offered for this deal is most surprising. I still can't believe they're offering up Temari, she agreed. From all reports she's one of their strongest genin. I didn't expect them to offer someone like her. It must mean they are trying to show how serious they are taking this, he said to her and then frowned. However, I don't like that fact that they requested that only the ninja of their choosing would be given to her and none other. Now normally I expected something like this, but who they chose. She didn't like it any better, I know. Someone like a Hugo or the last Uchiha I can understand, or even someone from one of the other clans. But to choose that boy is insane. I can't see why they would want him. Danzo turned around to face them. I say we agree to it. They were both shocked by this, but he raised his good hand. Silence anything outburst against it. Hear me out. If we accept it, we gain a very powerful genin that could one day help us out much as her training continues. Also, what if this is a trap? If there are members that are trying to send us a spy, then would we want to argue who they want? If they did ask for someone like the Uchiha, then I would be suspicious a bit more on their actions. Therefore, I think they're honest about wanting to strengthen the new alliance with this show of loyalty. We should accept also, because otherwise it would insult them and might sow some distrust with our views on the alliance. I know you both don't think much of the boy, but if he's the one they want, then who are we to argue the point? They obviously want the boy for a reason, although for what reason I can't see at the moment. Could they know about the QB? Junko asked. Danzo shook his head. I doubt it. The third made it very hard for any outsider to know about it. And if they did, I'm not sure if they would choose him anyway. I believe they might have chosen him for another reason. Perhaps it was because they chose him instead of one of the nobler clans as a way to prove that they weren't doing this just to marry into one of our clans. Homura stated. Danzo thought about that point. That is a possibility. But I feel the union could be beneficial to us regardless. I know you feel the boy should never have been made a ninja. However, I always felt the boy would have served us better as a weapon, but I was outvoted from that. At any rate, their children could be very powerful ninjas in the future. A young ninja like her shows much promise, and the boy's chakra is insane for his age. If that is passed on, it could lead to a family of high chakra users with powerful justice. So you can't use the boy as a weapon, you intend to breed him, is that correct? Junko said in mild disgust. She was never in favor of breeding programs, but in the past they had been beneficial. Although she could think of better people than the Uzumaki boy. Yes, Danzo said simply. It wasn't uncommon for villagers to breed new and stronger generations, and if he couldn't use the boy as a weapon, then he could ensure that their village could have stronger ninja in the future. If the children were strong enough, they could be used as fine soldiers in future wars. It was just too bad that he might be a bit too old before they were ready. I do suggest that they have at least one child as soon as possible, he stated to them. After all, with children the marriage alliance is complete, and if she is a traitor and a spy, we can use her child as a hostage against her. If she's not a spy, then it would make her more loyal to the village that's home to her child. They're a bit young, aren't they? She asked him. Danzo nodded. Yes, so we won't make the demand right away, but at some point they will need to produce a child. The other two nodded in agreement. They wouldn't push for it right away, but they would wait for a bit before they did. Danzo went back to looking out the window as his mind drifted to making some new plans for the Uzumaki children. If they were born with strong talents, he would have to see if he could influence them in some way. He doubted he could do it in person, but there were always other ways. On the road. Walking on one of the many roads within the fire country was a tall man with long white spiky hair. He was in a red vest and had two painted lines on his face. Next to him was his young new apprentice clad in an orange and blue outfit. Naruto was walking along trying to get the next stage of the Rasengan. He had already finished the first step with the water balloons and he could break the rubber ones slightly, but Jiraiya said he wanted him to totally break the rubber balls and not just make a small hole in them. He was just about to get it too when he sneezed again. Kid, are you coming down with a cold or something? You've been sneezing like crazy for the past few days. The older man asked Naruto. I don't know, I've never been sick before in my life. Anyway, where is this teammate of yours? She should be in the next village, he told his young student. At least he hoped she was in the next village. So far all his leads pointed to here, but she had a way of running out of town once the money she owed from gambling became a bit much. At any rate, he was proud of the kid's progress he was taking to it better than he had, not that he would tell the kid that. He had an ego enough as it was. He looked at the golden-haired boy and just looking at him he could see Minato in everything and his mother's personality as well. He knew that the boy's parents would be proud of him and how he overcame everything to get where he was. He just wished he could have raised the boy, but he was on the road all the time with his spy network and he couldn't have done it. He should have came back more to check up on the boy, but he had thought the third would know best. He sighed to himself at how wrong that was. True, he knew that his sensei did the best that he could under the circumstances, but still he could have at least found a family for the boy. Jiraiya knew full well how lonely life could get, but then he was a hermit by choice. But he pushed those thoughts away. He didn't need them, especially not when he was going to see Tsunade as well, although how he was going to talk her into the job he had no idea. She was a very stubborn woman, but that was one of the reasons he brought Naruto along. He was just as stubborn as she was, and the kid had a way with people. If anyone could get her to take the job, it was the blonde knucklehead there. Suna. I'm to be what? The female yell was heard clear halfway across Suna, inside a large building that was home to the late cage. In a small audience chamber there was Kankuro, in his usual all-black outfit, only the hood was down and his brown hair was free, although he still had on his purple face paint. Next to him was his younger brother Gaara. He cast a look to younger brother. The red-headed boy was stark as ever, but ever since that fight with the blonde-haired boy he had changed. He wasn't ready to at the drop of a hat. In fact, the usual terror people normally felt around him was greatly diminished. He just couldn't figure out what happened in that fight. Sure, it was the first and only time Gaara had been defeated, but there had to be something more to it. Gaara had for years been unstable and now he seemed to be calm and yet controlled. He wasn't sure what was more creepy, the old monster Gaara that would you if he suddenly felt like it, or this new calm and collect Gaara that you didn't know what was going on in his head these days. He sighed and decided to enjoy the show for the moment before he missed it. They had all been called into the room by their Jonin sensei Baki. The man looked a little nervous about something, which was odd since the man was hardly the nervous type. Although it soon became known to him why he was nervous. Apparently the council had entered into an agreement with the Leaf Village. Something about an arranged marriage to smooth things over. He could see why they would want that. Despite being outnumbered, the Leaf Village had won and were in better shape than they were from what he heard. His older sister Temari had asked what this had to do with them. Well, Baki had told her that she was the one that the council had put forth for the arranged marriage. That was when the yelling started and he had to snicker. The only thing that came close to Gaara's temperament was his older sister's. The tall blonde-haired woman looked like she wanted to reach for her large battle fan on her back and wanted to use it on the adult. Temari, this is an order by the council and I had nothing to do with it. I was just to tell you of what is going on and to help prepare you. He said, trying to calm the young ninja down. So what, I get no say in this? Why the hell are they sending me anyway? She demanded of their sensei. Because you are the eldest child of the late leader, so it's fitting that you are sent as a message that we are truly sorry for what we did. You're a symbol for the village that we mean peace. Temari grounded her teeth as she fumed. She couldn't believe this was happening to her. Of course it made a bit of sense, but still that didn't mean she had to like it. So I'm the sacrificial lamb, is that it? Not really, but you get the idea. Despite that we were tricked by Orochimaru, we still all went against the peace treaty we had with their village. We were in the wrong and we need to repair our relationship with their village. Since both of our forces are hurting, it will take years to get back the strength we lost. In that time we both can't afford a war with each other, as that would invite others to put a dagger into our backs when we aren't looking. He explained. Temari thought about it. True, there were a few major powers that would love to see either of them taken down. If Suna and Konoha fought a war, even if there was a winner, that winner would be too weak to protect themselves. With two great powers weakened, she could easily see smaller nations wanted to expand their borders and power, and the larger nations to wipe out a couple of rivals in the deal as well. It would mean all-out war all over, and in the end only her village and that of the Leaf would be destroyed. She gripped the top of a chair thinking about all of this. She was a Kage's daughter and as such had been trained in diplomacy and to think in the big picture. She could see the logic in what the council did, but she loved this village. Her youngest brother was slowly regaining his humanity and she never felt closer to him. She didn't want to leave her home and her family behind. She looked at her two younger brothers. They were the only family she had left in the world, but if a war started, then how could she live with herself knowing that she could have stopped it? I hate this, she whispered out to herself. Baki sighed and walked over to her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. I know, but it's your duty to do this. This is the greatest mission that you'll uptake for this village, Temari. You know full well that the life of a ninja is for the country and for the village. Our personal lives come second to them, and at times we are asked to do things of great difficulty as well. Quote. Temari hung her head in defeat. Who is it that I'll marry? Don't know yet, we have to hear back from Konoha first. In the meantime, we're to get you ready, study up on the Leaf Village and any customs that you'll need to know. Temari let out a long sigh and felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked surprised to see that it was Gaara. Although his face was void of emotion, there seemed to be a hint of something in his eyes. If he hurts you'll him. He said simply. Normally that wouldn't be anything new, but there was a difference. Gaara'd only for himself and never for other people. He was basically telling her in his own way that he would be looking out for her. That if whoever she was marrying hurt her, that he would be there to protect her and help her. She never had known Gaara to offer anything like that before, and she was strangely touched by it. She actually smiled at him, and for a moment Gaara seemed to be pleased. She wasn't sure how she knew, but she just did. Thank you, Gaara. Yeah, well, you're our big sister, what do you expect? Kankuro said, smiling at her. Gaara nodded. Family is important. You are important, and I will not let anyone harm those precious to me. Temari couldn't speak. She didn't trust herself not to choke at his words. Gaara had never said that they were precious to him. She had no idea what had changed her baby brother, but for the first time in years she had her youngest brother back. To the surprise of everyone, she hugged the younger boy to her. Gaara was shocked by the gesture, and he was trying to make sense of the feelings he was getting. The warm embrace of his sister reminded him of when he was in his sand, but this was different. This was warm and he felt something nice growing inside of him. He wasn't sure what to do, but something told him to hug her back, so very gently he reached up with his arms and wrapped them around his big sister. He couldn't remember if he was ever hugged in his life, and it felt nice for some reason. He was still getting used to all the new emotions and feelings. For so long he lived for only himself and loved only himself. But Naruto had shown him where real power came from. The boy was like him in so many ways, and yet he hadn't turned into a monster. He had beaten back the darkness and had shown Gaara that he didn't have to live in darkness himself. Gaara was forever thankful for Naruto to opening his eyes to a new world, and right now he suddenly started to understand where Naruto got his true power. The feelings he had with his sister hugging him made him want to protect her and Kankuro. He would do anything to protect them, and it felt nicer than anything in the past. Back he watched on as the two siblings were hugging. He had a small smile on his face at the sight. Whatever happened to change Gaara had also healed the rift in this family. He hated that they had to take Temari away from it, but duty came first. But he would ensure that they could visit whenever they could and also have enough time together before she left as well. Finally we're back. Naruto shouted out happily. It had taken time, but he and the old pervert of a teacher finally found Tsunade. Of course it hadn't been easy. They got into a fight when the old woman, although he still didn't get why she hid her true age under the illusion of someone that looked to be in their mid-20s, started to badmouth the Hokages. To Naruto that was unforgivable, especially since the death of the third still hurt him deeply. The old man had been like a grandfather to him, and his death hit him hard. Well, the fight had been pretty much one-sided until he tried the Rasengan. It hadn't been complete, but it was enough to get her to make a bet with him that he couldn't master it in a week. Well, after all the training he finally got it, and just in time, since Orochimaru had found her to fix his arms, and he found out that Kabuto, a fellow leaf ninja he met in the Chunin exams, had been a spy for Orochimaru all along. While Jiraiya fought Orochimaru, he fought to save Tsunade from Kabuto and used a finished Rasengan for the first time. Although he blacked out from something Kabuto had done when he woke up, he had her necklace and was told they beat back Orochimaru. So then they started on home, and there he was with Jiraiya, Tsunade and her apprentice Shizune holding Tsunade's pet pig Tonton. Come on, you promised to heal Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei. Naruto told her, dragging her through the gates. All right, just hold your horses, she told him as the blonde buxom woman walked through the gates. She never thought she would be back here, let alone take on the leadership role of the village, but the kid opened her eyes. She smiled, looking down at the blonde-haired boy. He reminded her so much of her little brother, and his love of the village was like how her lover Dan had loved the village. Looking over the village, she had to admit, nothing much had changed on the surface. But in a strange way it actually felt a bit nice coming back. It was nicer than she had thought it would feel. She looked up at the mountain with the faces of her grandfather, granduncle, and her sensei up there with the fourth's face too. She smiled looking at the familiar faces, and strangely enough she actually felt like she was coming home. For so long her own bitterness at the losses of two important people in her life had obscured her view of the village, and now with it gone she could see the reasons why they had loved this village. Oh come on, Ero Sennin, can't you get Barkan to move it? Naruto asked. Naruto, she has to take up the job of Hokage first, and at least let her settling in for a bit. Why don't you drop all your stuff at your place and meet us at the Hokage's tower when you're done? Jiraiya said, and then thought about it and gave him a little money back. Here, get some ramen while you're here too. Naruto's face lightened up immediately. Thanks, Ero Sennin. Stop calling me that brat. He shouted at him. How about pervy sage then? That's basically the same thing. Naruto gave him that fox-like grin as he ran off to get ramen and then drop his stuff off at his place. Jiraiya muttered about the lack of respect in the youth of today. Tsunade smirked as she watched the two of them. They were quite the pair and she could tell that he really liked the boy. She remembered when he swore he never wanted to take on another student after the Minato had died against the Kyuubi, but it seemed that Naruto had won him over. Jiraiya, there's something I've been meaning to ask about Naruto. His last name is Uzumaki, right? Is he related to Kushina? She asked him as they all walked on. Jiraiya nodded his head. Yes, he's their son. Tsunade nodded her head in understanding, but Shizune looked confused. Excuse me, but what are you two talking about? Do you know who Naruto-kun's parents are? She asked her mentor. Sorry, but that's a triple S secret, Jiraiya said. He can't know who his family is until he's old enough to defend himself. All I can say is that his father has made a lot of enemies and they would love nothing more than to his son since the man himself is dead. His mother died in childbirth, so as far as I know he has no other family. So, he doesn't know at all? She asked sadly. He nodded solemnly. I don't like it either. But the boy must be protected, and besides the kid would blab it to the mountains if he found out. He needs to mature a bit more, but I will say this, he would have made his parents proud. I mean, damn, he did the Rasengan in a month. The kid's got loads of untapped talent that should be brought out. Tsunade smirked as they walked up to the main building with the kanji of fire on it. She ignored the gasps and points of surprise at her return. She and the others climbed the stairs as they found themselves in the Hokage's office, or her office now. She never thought that she would be the one to take up the job, and she wished it was at least under better circumstances. The death of their sensei wasn't something you took easily. On the outside it would appear that she and Jiraiya were strong, but on the inside she knew that both of them were hurting. The old pervert was like a father figure to them, and it was their teammate, Orochimaru, who hated him. It was yet another betrayal in a long list of betrayals that man had done to them and the village. As they entered the office, she had memories of her sensei sitting behind that desk in his robes, smoking, doing the usual paperwork. She gave a small smile as she walked towards it and ran a hand over the surface of the desk. It had been made by her grandfather when he became Hokage, and she found it odd how a piece of furniture had so much history tied to it. She thought she could still faintly smell a bit of the smoke in the room from his pipe. She felt a hand on her shoulder and knew it was Jiraiya. He remained silent, just letting her know that he knew what she was thinking and feeling. It always amazed her at the times that he could actually act his age. The moment was shattered, however, when there was a knock on the door and two people walked in. Tsunade and Jiraiya knew them as the Third's old teammates Homura and Koharu, who were also at least two members who sat on the council. Apparently word got around fast as the two members came in to meet her. I'm glad that we were able to find you so soon, Tsunade-sama. Homura said. Yes, we're all glad that Jiraiya was able to find you and bring you back home. Koharu stated. Tsunade sighed as she sat behind the desk. Yes, well, it seems I'll have my work cut out for me. Have to rebuild the village, familiarize myself with the current shinobi roster and such. Actually, there is one pressing detail that I think you should know about that happened while you were traveling, Homura said as he handed her a piece of paper. It was the official agreement with Suna for the arranged marriage between Naruto and Temari of Suna. Tsunade, however, didn't know that before she took the document and started to read it, and when her expression went from bored to a look of anger, both Shizune and Jiraiya were wondering what was going on. Tsunade looked at the agreement in her hands. What the hell is this? Tsunade-sama, Homura said calmly, it's obvious what it is. It's an arranged marriage between one of our genin and one of theirs to seal the bonds of the newly restored alliance we have with Tsuna. The council has agreed to this. She couldn't believe that they had gone and done this. Sure, it happened now and then, but so soon and between two people so young. She never was a fan of this old custom, and she had hoped that she had seen the last of this damn thing. Yes, it has, Koharu told her plainly. Since we had no hostage at the moment, we felt we needed to agree to this. After all, given the tense feelings on both sides from the losses of loved ones, can you blame us for trying to assure the new peace lasts? Tsunade could feel her temper rising. She knew that they set this up in a way that she couldn't step in. If she did, it could be a political disaster, and the last thing she needed was for her first moment in office was to cause political strife with Tsuna so soon after repairing their alliance. She looked to Jiraiya for help. Jiraiya had remained silent through this, as he had looked through the agreement before passing it off to Shizune. With one of his rare serious expressions on his face, he had been thinking about what had happened while he was gone. He never liked it when people were used as pawns for the games of politicians. At least when it was for the survival of the village or for the land of fire, it was a shinobi's duty to protect them, but this just didn't sit well with him either. He also had been thinking hard on the matter, and it just seemed that there was no way to get Naruto out of this. If they did, it would be a slap in the face of Tsuna, but if he couldn't get him out of it, then the least he could do is to at least improve the deal. I think since the deal is already made, we can't do anything. Tsunade shot him a glare, feeling like he had let her down. However, Jiraiya said, I think that if Naruto is going to marry against his will to someone he hardly knows and at such a young age, the village, in the spirit of political matters, should ensure that Tsuna isn't insulted after the wedding. What do you mean? Koharu asked, wondering like everyone else what he was up to. I've been to Naruto's place. As an orphan he has little, and with a wife and I'm guessing eventually children at one point, there is no way the two of them could live properly given Temari's station in Tsuna. She's an influential political figure. You think when she tells her brothers that she's living in a cramped apartment that the Tsuna council will think we just took their prize genin and shoved her into a closet? That would piss me off, that's for sure. Tsunade got a smirk on her face as she caught on to what he was doing. She looked to see the two old people hadn't thought about that. It was true that Temari being the daughter of the late Kage, and she was deserving of a decent place and way of life. She walked to her desk and sat down in the chair as she folded her hands and looked hard at the two members of the council. You know, that's right, I don't think Tsuna would take kindly to her treatment by allies, she said to them. Then what do you suggest? Homura asked the blonde woman. Well, given this is for a political alliance and everything that goes with it, both Naruto and Temari will need to be given a slightly higher pay grade than normal, at least until they reach Chunin and can handle things on their own. After all, the third helped Naruto out, but this is something much different, and so they both need the help of the village, or you know what could happen. Anything else? The old woman asked, a little tense. Jiraiya. Tsunade asked, almost offhandedly. I think a new place to live would be another way to go, he said, as if he was thinking hard on the subject. After all, she could be a permanent representative for Tsuna here, even if I suspect she'll be made into a leaf ninja. I'm not saying give them a palace, but with all the ruined buildings, I'm sure the council can divert some funds to fixing up a house for them to use. Maybe even hiring some of the genin to help, and of course a few things to go with it, but in comparison for keeping the peace, it's really a small price. Tsunade grinned at the two members of the council. He has a point. If we want this alliance to work, we better make sure that, as I'm sure the council will want to ensure that things go well with Tsuna. After all, I would hate for them to find out early just what kind of living conditions we'll be giving the young lady when she arrives. The two elders knew the hidden threat in her words. If they didn't do this, she would basically inform the Tsunade Council and they would not be pleased. They could in fact call off the entire thing and that would cause a political nightmare. Tsunade grinned as she could see them thinking it over. She really gave them no real choice in the matter and everyone knew it. She might not be able to get Naruto out of this, but she could at least make his life better for it. Very well, we will ensure that the council approves of this action, the old man said. It is in the best interests of the alliance after all. Konoha Hospital. Sakura Haruno was walking to Sasuke's room again. She checked on him and Kakashi daily, hoping that they would get better. With Naruto gone off, she was left alone and thankfully Ino kept her company whenever she could. She smiled at how they were slowly repairing their friendship after their match in the Chunin exams. It was one of the few good things that came out of it. But she missed her team. She hated being alone as it only reminded her of how things had been for her as a young child. Without Ino there, she might have ended up as just this lonely girl that people picked on with no confidence at all. She winced at the memory of how her relationship with Ino had broken up over their mutual feelings for Sasuke. Although she still wanted Sasuke, at least now her friendship with Ino was back on track. Now if only the boy would wake up. She sighed as she came to Sasuke's room, but she was hearing voices behind the door. One was the loud voice of Naruto and she actually smiled a bit hearing it. Mainly because it meant one member of her team was finally back, but the other voices she never heard before. She opened the door and there stood Naruto, but with him were two people she had never seen before. One was a woman in a gray dress with short brown hair that had an earthly beauty about her. The other was a woman that looked not much older, although she was in fact 50 years old, with blonde hair in pigtails, a green shirt. Naruto looked at her and smiled brightly. Hey, Sakura-chan, guess who finally woke his emo ass up? Sakura blinked a few times and took a few steps through the door as she saw around the women, and there was Sasuke finally awake from his coma. Sasuke-kun. The pink-haired girl ran right over to the dark-haired boy and hugged him. Tsunade had to smile at the scene. This was why she got into medicine, seeing someone recovered and the reactions. Although it seemed not all the reactions were what she had hoped for. Naruto looked a little downcast. He was glad that the boy was okay, but she could tell by looking on his face that he would have liked the girl to have hugged him like that. And the boy in the bed didn't even seem to notice the young girl was even there, let alone hugging him. Too bad, Naruto. Looks like she has her eyes on someone else, but you better get over it fast because I'm sorry to say you have no choice but to, Tsunade thought to herself, seeing the scene. She let out a cough, getting everyone's attention. There's a meeting in my office tomorrow. I want you all to be there with the others at 9 sharp. Okay, Ba-chan. Naruto smiled up at her. She could feel the twitch in her eye at being called Granny again. She really wished the brat would stop calling her that. As she and Shizune left, it was Sakura that looked to Naruto. Naruto, who was that? That's our new Hokage. Naruto smiled proudly at her. She's our new what? Sakura asked, shocked. Hokage's office. Tsunade had gathered up Naruto and all of his friends as well as their teammates. Maybe doing it in private would have been better, but this way she could deal with all of their reactions and they would have to be told anyway. She noticed that Sasuke looked better, although Kakashi was sitting down still resting up. Everyone had been told that she was the new Hokage and there were various reactions. Although a girl in a pink shirt and with her hair in 2 buns was looking at her with stars in her eyes for some reason. She glanced down at the profiles on her desk and saw the girl's name was Tenten from Guy's team. She wasn't sure how to start things off. How do you tell someone that they're to be used as a political tool and have to change their entire life? She sighed as she had the official documents before her of everyone here as well as the marriage alliance. Everyone, I have some important news that will be made public when I take up the mantle of Hokage officially tomorrow. Tsunade hated ceremonies and she wasn't looking forward to tomorrow. She couldn't even drink all that much because Shizune kept telling her that having the Hokage hung over on her own appointment ceremony wouldn't look good. What is it, Tsunade-sama? Kakashi was the one to ask in that usual lazy tone. There is going to be a political marriage agreement with Suna, Tsunade told them. The Suna Council and the Konoha Council both agreed to this apparently before I was here. They seem to want to forge a stronger bond between the villages and two people have been assigned to be the ones to marry. One young lady from Suna is coming here to become a part of our village and to marry the one that the Suna Council picked out. They're seriously going along with that old act? Kurenai, the Genjutsu master of the village, asked. Tsunade nodded her head. Yes, I never liked it either. So why are we here, Ba-chan? Naruto asked with arms behind his head, looking bored. Naruto, show some respect, don't call her that. Sakura said, hitting him on the head. The boy face planted into the floor as Sakura apologized. Tsunade had to admit the girl could at least try to keep the boy controlled, although she wished that Naruto would at least show some respect towards her. Anyways, Tsunade said, ignoring it, the reason why you are all here is because you all have certain missions for this upcoming event. A home was picked out for the couple that will need to be fixed up, so you all will help out with this. Normally we would use professionals, but they're too busy rebuilding the village. So we get stuck building a home. Sasuke said, not liking the idea. If they really wanted something that badly, he could just buy one for them. He needed to train and not build some home for some political marriage. Well, most of you, Tsunade said, dreading this point. You see, Naruto and Kakashi won't be doing this. Huh. Why's that? Naruto said, rubbing the spot on his head that Sakura hit. Kakashi sat up straighter as many of the other Jonins seemed to be catching on. Because Naruto, you're the one that Suna wanted to be married, so you'll have to have Kakashi teach you certain protocols while the others are busy. Tsunade said. The silence in the room was deafening. Everyone looked at Naruto, who looked like he was frozen in place. He blinked several times as thought he didn't believe what she had just said, and no one could really fault him for it. Tsunade was waiting for the explosion that would erupt pretty soon. She didn't have to wait long. What? The yell was heard all over the building and a bit outside of it too. Everyone's ears were also ringing slightly from the loud ninja's voice. What do you mean I'm the one getting married? Question mark. I can't get married, I'm not old enough, I don't even know her, and well. He cast a glaze to Sakura, his longtime crush. Although he kept asking her out and she kept saying no to him, he had hoped that one day she would accept it. She hadn't been as mean as she used to after the whole Chunin exams, she had even started to be nicer to him. But now he was being told that he was going to be married to some stranger. Naruto, when you became a ninja, you officially became an adult in the eyes of the village, Tsunade told him simply. Unlike normal civilians, when you become a genin, you are officially no longer a child under the law. As for the young woman, you actually do know her, I believe. She's Temari, the one that was on the Suna team that was at the exams. Naruto thought about it. You mean that blonde girl with the big fan? Gaara's sister and the one that beat Tenten. At that mention, Tenten's head hung down as she felt really depressed. Why did everyone have to bring up her match against Temari? Okay, sure, she hadn't even touched the older girl, but it was just bad luck that she had been paired up against someone she had no skills against. She was a weapons user and the other girl had been a wind user and had blown all her weapons away. She also really didn't want her idol, Tsunade, to hear about her embarrassing defeat. Well then, I won't do it, he said, crossing his arms. Tsunade looked at him for a moment. Everyone, can you leave the two of us alone? As everyone filed out, she got out from behind her desk and stood in front of Naruto. He was looking down at the ground and she felt sorry for the kid. But he had to grow up sometime and he had to realize that being a ninja meant sacrifices. Naruto, I know this isn't fair, but this is an important thing that you have to do for the village. But I hardly know her, and what about Sakura-chan? He asked her in a soft voice that didn't seem to fit him. She sighed. Naruto, a ninja's life is about sacrifice and doing the greater good. You want to become Hokage one day, right? Well, when you're Hokage, you have to realize that you'll have to make tough choices. You'll decide on who goes on missions, and sometimes you'll be sending people out who you know will die. It's not always pretty and you can't save everyone, but you have to understand. For the Hokage, the village must come first. I tried to think of a way out of this, but to do so would have caused a political incident. I'm sorry, Naruto, I tried. The best that me and Jiraiya could come up with was to make your life a bit better with it. You mean like the new house? He asked her. Although he liked his apartment, it wasn't fit for more than just him really, and living in a real house was something he never thought that he would be able to do. Plus a little pay rise, but it was the only thing I could do. This was done before I got here, and so I wasn't in the loop when it happened. Naruto, you have to know that this is most likely the most important duty, the most important mission you could take up for the village. You could always say no, but there will be consequences, so I want you to understand that. Naruto thought long and hard about it. Sure, he didn't want to do this, but this was something important for the village as well. He never went back on his word and he always completed his missions. Naruto thought about what could happen if he didn't do this. Although he wasn't sure what exactly would happen, he guessed it wouldn't be good if this was really important. How much trouble would be caused if I didn't do this? A lot. Our relations with Suna could be damaged and it could really harm our alliance, and given both our weakened states, it wouldn't be good for either of us. She told him. Naruto took a look out the window for the village. It was true that he loved the village more than anything. It was his home despite how most of the village had treated him in his life. This was his home, and the third Hokage, the first person to acknowledge him and show him kindness, had died to protect this village. In that moment he knew that for a Hokage you had to do whatever it was for the village, even to give your own life. If the old man could give his life, then this wasn't as big a deal. Okay. I'll do it, he said softly. Tsunade smiled down at the boy and placed a hand on his head. He looked up and gave her a small smile in return. She knew that this wouldn't be easy for him, but maybe there was hope for it after all. He wouldn't be alone in life, but she just hoped that the two of them could learn to like one another, as being trapped in a loveless marriage wasn't something she wanted for him. Meanwhile, outside of her office, the others were already talking about the big news. I can't believe that Naruto, of all people, is getting married, Ino whined. I mean, I don't want to marry just yet, but still, I never thought that the first of us to get married was him. Would you have preferred that they set you up with someone from Suna? Shikamaru asked her, resting against a wall. Yeah, what if you had been set up with someone like that Gaara guy? Choji asked her. Don't even joke about that. Ino yelled at them both. The thought of being married to that scary red-headed boy from the exams would have been a nightmare. Not only would she had lost her chance at Sasuke, but that Gaara guy was just really scary. Hey, Kiba said as he walked over to them with Shino in tow and Akamaru riding on the boy's head. You guys seen Hinata anywhere? She looked kind of upset and we wanted to see what we could do to help. I haven't noticed, to be honest, Ino said, looking around and not seeing the shy girl anywhere. Why not ask him? Shikamaru pointed to Neji. It stood to reason since he was Hinata's cousin, plus with his eyes he could find her easily enough. Although both Kiba and Shino hadn't liked the guy for the longest time, not after kneeling Hinata in the Chunin exams when they fought against each other, but after Naruto had beaten him the guy had changed. Sure, he was still uptight like most Hyuga, but the malice in him was gone. He had even been nice to Hinata again and she had never been happier. They walked cautiously over to the older boy who was with his team. Hey you, Kiba said to him, earning a glare from the Hyuga prodigy. Yes. You know where Hinata ran off to? She was upset and we can't find her. Kiba said. What happened to get her upset? Tenten asked them both. We are uncertain, that is why we are searching for her, Shino said in that usual monotone voice of his. Neji closed his eyes as he activated his eyes. The veins on the side of his face enlarged as his eyes looked more strained. He could see all around him, and through anything. He started his scan within the building and then moved outside of it. They waited for him to finish and after a few seconds he deactivated it. Well, Kiba asked him. She's in good hands, don't worry about it. Neji told them simply. Outside the building, Hinata was on the ground, hidden from view as she was crying. When the new Hokage told them that Naruto was being forced into a marriage, she felt her young heart break. For years she had liked Naruto, he was everything that she wanted to be and he never gave up. When she had been fighting Neji, it had been him to cheer her on, it was him that gave her the strength to get stronger and to improve herself. He had given her the old Neji back that she had missed for years. Every time she tried to say something to him, she stumbled over her words. Just once she wanted to tell him how she felt. But she had waited too long and now it looked like she would never have her chance with him. She silently cried her heart out until she felt a familiar arm around her. She jumped and looked up into the face of Kurenai, her sensei, and who was like a mother figure to her after she had lost her own mother at an early age. Kurenai had known about the young girl's crush, she had suspected something for a while, but it wasn't until that moment when she had seen Naruto cheer on her student and how she reacted to him did she finally figure it out. But when that announcement had been made, she had kept an eye on the young girl. She had seen how she had been controlling herself from crying right then and there. Hinata had left the room as quickly as she could and she had followed, knowing the girl needed comfort. She put an arm around the small girl as she hugged herself to Kurenai's chest. I'm sorry, Hinata, she said softly to her. It's not fair, she cried into the woman. I know it's not, life sometimes isn't fair, she told her, gently stroking her short hair. She wished this didn't have to happen to her, and she also wasn't sure how Naruto would think on it either. It just seemed that the happiness of two young people had just been crushed for the sake of politics. Losing your first crush wasn't easy. She remembered her own first crush and how he had just dumped her after a few months. She had been very depressed for a while until she got over it, but she was stronger for it, and Kurenai only hoped that Hinata would eventually get over this as well. It had been a few days and already, Temari was starting to feel the strain. The council hadn't told her who she was marrying just yet, as they wanted to get confirmation from Konoha that the new Hokage was appraised and her fiancé as well. After that, and there were no problems, a message would be sent, and then she would be on her way to the Leaf Village. A part of her hoped that this fell through so she didn't have to go through with it, but she knew what was riding on it as well. So for the past week she had been looking up and reading all about the village and those important in it. When she had gone off to the Chunin exams, her team had been given some of this before, but now it was more in depth. She had already read up on the clans and now she knew more about some of them than she needed to know. She was bored out of her mind and leaning all this about customs, political figures and other such things that she didn't want to think about anymore. Normally she went out to trail to blow off steam, but after she had went a little overboard, Baki had ordered her not to train for the next few days. So now she was bored and itching to destroy something with her fan. She let out a frustrated groan as she put the scrolls aside and went out of her room. She went into the living room that she shared with her family. There was Kankuro sitting on the ground working on a new puppet by the looks of it. There were tools and parts all over the small mat he was working on. She hated how messy he got the place when he did this, and the worst thing was that he had his own little workshop for this kind of thing as well. How many times have I told you not to do that in here? Temari snapped at her. Lost count, he muttered as he finished screwing something together. Besides, we were just waiting for you to get out. He jerked his thumb to the side and through the large door she could see Gaara standing out a balcony looking over the village. It was something new he had started to do lately. It puzzled them both as Gaara never really showed much interest in the village before, but now it was like he was studying it. It was just one more of his odd behavior that he had started to do ever since after they had picked him up off the ground nearly dead with his fight with that blonde genin of the leaf. Although it was nice to see this change in him, he was calmer and even a bit nicer now. She had asked him what had gotten into him a few days ago, and all he said was that he had been shown a new way and a better way to be stronger. He didn't elaborate, and it just left her even more confused what was going on in the head of her baby brother. So why were you waiting for me anyway? Temari demanded of her other brother. We were told that the Hokage has sent us a replay and that the whole, well, you know, it's still on. He said, a bit nervous. She was touchy if he used words like marriage, so he avoided them. It was fun to watch her mad at others, but not when she was furious at you. For a moment she actually pitied the poor bastard that got stuck with her, given how much she hated this whole affair. But he was a ninja and he knew that this was a duty that they couldn't get out of. That didn't mean he liked it. They were a team after all, and they were also a family. Sure, on the outside he didn't let it show that it bothered him, but he wasn't very good at his feelings anyway. Plus they were more than a team, they were a family, and he didn't want it to be broken up. That's another reason why he was toying with his new puppet. It helped to calm him. Do you know who it is? Temari asked him. She had been dreading who it was she was being made to marry for a while now. She guessed it wouldn't be too bad if it was at least someone their own age group, most likely one of the ones from the Chunin exams from her reasoning. They were the strongest members and there was no way her own council would marry her off to some weakling. So for the past week, as she was studying up on the village that would become her new home, she was trying to figure out who it was she was marrying. There was the Uchiha boy. He was handsome and strong, although his personality didn't really seem all that great. That was the reason after her fist encounter she didn't take much notice of him. That kind of arrogance got old fast. There was also the fact that her brother had his sights on him and she knew that he wasn't going to live for very long anyway, at least until he was saved by his teammate. There was also the Hyuga boy she saw fight. He seemed very strong as well, although he too had been defeated by that same boy that had beaten Gaara. Another possibility was that boy she had fought herself. She would admit that it still pissed her off that throughout the entire match he had been actually one step ahead of her and she hadn't seen it until the end. She was supposed to be a great tactician, but he just played with her. And when he had her beat, what does he do? He gives up. Although she had officially won, she took it as a loss no matter what anyone said. Yeah. He told us who it was all right. He trailed off, not sure how she would take it. Well, who it is? Temari demanded. It's that Naruto kid, you know, the one that beat Gaara, Kankuro finally said. Although he hadn't seen the battle, he heard the story and had seen the shape Gaara had been in. He had never seen his little brother in that kind of shape before, and anyone that could do that to him was scary. Temari was thinking the same thing. She had seen that insane battle. She had never seen a battle on such an epic scale like that before, and truth be told, she was actually a little scared of the little blonde genin. He had done the impossible at every single battle. He kept beating opponents that he shouldn't have been able to. He acted like a goof and an idiot, but during those battles she had seen something else in him. When he got serious, it was like he was another person. She couldn't remembering seeing his eyes, but his whole body spoke volumes. And now she was going to marry him. She wasn't sure what to think at the moment. The boy was too much of a mystery to her, and the fact that he was stronger than he let on was another thing. She had to sit down at the moment as she was thinking about her future husband was going to be. He came off as such a loudmouth idiot, but given what she saw, was it just all an act? She looked to see that Kankuro was a bit at odds with it, as well as he too didn't know what to think of the boy that defeated their once murderous little brother. I approve, came a slightly gravely voice, and everyone turned, surprised to see Gaara was now in the doorway looking at them with that neutral expression of his. What? Temari asked him. He's a good choice, Gaara said in the same dead tone. But, after what he did? Temari asked him. She honestly didn't get this at all. Of all of them, Gaara shouldn't even like the boy after defeating him. But he had been a changed man after the event, but still to just actually accept this didn't make any sense. Gaara. Her older brother asked the younger. He's a good person, Gaara simply said, and turned back to stare out at the village again, leaving his family just as confused as they had been without any more explanation. Temari just never understood her youngest brother, and now she was even more confused than ever. What could he mean that Naruto was a good person? Just a short time ago he was a murderous monster, and now he was all of a sudden saying and doing things that constantly surprised and confounded her. And he approved. That didn't exactly go well with her. Did that mean that Naruto was even worse monster than he was? No, that didn't make any sense at all. At any rate, Temari, with this final confirmation, you should start packing. You'll be leaving for the village soon, Baki told her. She sighed as she slumped down a bit. She cast a look to her family. Who knew when the next time she would see them? Well, the wedding of course, but after that she wouldn't see them all the time. She got up and headed for the door. If her time was limited in this village, then she was going to go for a walk. She wanted to have some memories of her home before she left, and to have one last good look around her home. The next time she saw it, who knows how much will change when she next visited anyway. Konoha. Naruto never liked school. It was very boring at times, although Iruka had made it kind of nice. That is when he didn't get into those boring lectures. So now Naruto was feeling he was right back in school. As he was sitting at his kitchen table looking over his books, he felt like he'd rather do what Shikamaru did and fall asleep. Naruto, are you paying attention? Kakashi asked him across from him. The man was leaning back looking lazy, as he had been teaching Naruto all the things he would need to know. So far it hadn't been going very well. Naruto was always restless, and it took Kakashi a few days on how to actually teach Naruto this kind of stuff. After getting some tips from Iruka, he had made some progress, but still the boy was having troubles. Oh come on, Kakashi-sensei, this is boring. Why do I have to learn all this stuff anyway? he moaned. Kakashi sighed as this wasn't the first time he had to go through this. Okay, well, first it's good to get to know where Temari is coming from for a deeper understanding of her culture. I mean, what if there is something that's offensive to her culture but isn't to ours? You really don't want to piss her off for the wrong reasons, right? Naruto thought about all the times he had accidentally pissed off Sakura, and Temari was just as scary. Plus she had that huge metal fan as well, and he suddenly got a mental image of an angry Temari slamming her huge fan onto his head. Naruto broke out of the daydream with a shiver. Now then, you should also familiarize yourself with certain diplomatic things as well. Well, the first part one get, but why that? Naruto asked him. Naruto, this is going to be a major political marriage, which means that you two will eventually have to meet and greet with several of the clans and members of the council in official functions. As she's also a representative of Suna, she'll be most likely be used as a link to her village for official means. So that also means that you'll be going with her to Suna at times on official business, and you need to know this so you don't make any major political embarrassments. Although he knew that would be a miracle, as Naruto always seemed to have a way of getting into trouble even when he didn't mean it at times. Oh man, Naruto grumbled. Naruto, you want to be Hokage one day, right? Kakashi asked him, knowing this would get his attention. Well, a Hokage also knows about this. All this political stuff are things that you'll have to deal with all the time. A Hokage runs the village and had to make a lot of decisions, like with Tsunade-sama's with this whole affair. Naruto looked at the books and sighed. He really did want to become Hokage, and he never thought that he would need to learn all this stuff. He just thought a Hokage did paperwork and protected the village like all the Hokages before had done. Think of it as training then to be a Hokage. Kakashi gave him that usual eye smile of his. With that, Naruto perked up as he grinned at his teacher. Well, why didn't you say that to start with? Let's get this training underway. Kakashi only chuckled as he started to teach Naruto more of the history of Suna. Later he would get him up to date on the tea ceremony, proper manners, and later on he would give him a break for ramen to help him relax a bit. While he started to study, Kakashi took the time to think on this whole affair. He didn't like the fact that Naruto would have to be put through this, but he knew how things went in the ninja world. All things being said, there were a lot worse duties that a ninja had to do. He had seen and done a few back in his time in Anbu. One of the reasons why he left it, to be honest, was that he didn't want to do those kinds of jobs anymore. But Naruto was another matter. While looking at the blonde, he couldn't help but see his father. There were times he wished he could tell Naruto about his parentage, but he was under orders from the third. He couldn't tell him no matter what until he was strong enough to defend himself, and he wasn't. But he tried his best. The training and missions he had them do was a way to start off. It was obvious that Sasuke was more advanced, but then again he had help when he was younger. Sakura he wasn't sure what to do about. She had great chakra control and would be great for Genjutsu, but other than what he got from his Sharingan to see through them, he didn't know much, unlike Kurenai. Then there was Naruto, who always wanted to be trained and took to it with a dedication that he liked to see. If only he'd calmed down and relaxed when he learned things, it would come a bit more easier for him. There were times when he felt putting his team in the Chunin exams had been a mistake, but they were a good team and it had brought out in him their inner strengths. He did wish he could have helped Naruto more, but honestly he didn't expect him to beat Neji. Do good, yes, but he had wished he could have seen that win. But after he saw what happened to Lee, he had to train Sasuke or the boy would have gotten, and he owed too much to Obito to let the last of his clan die. The teacher he had found was the only good one he could find. Although he learned he found a better teacher, it was a good thing too. Naruto was always full of surprises and he was wondering that maybe he should keep that in mind in the future. At any rate, he was worried how Naruto would handle this. This was a major step, and despite everything, he wasn't exactly the most mature person. He only hoped that Naruto's ability to touch the hearts of people worked on Temari as well, because he didn't want to see his student trapped in a loveless marriage. Plus there was the problem with Sasuke as well. After that trip from the hospital, he noticed that the boy had taken a few steps backwards in his social progress with his team. He was also worried about that seal on the boy as well. It seemed to be reacting stronger for him than it was with Anko, who had been given on to. He was worried that Sasuke would seek out Orochimaru, which had been another reason why he had trained him in the Chidori, to show him that he didn't have to leave the village to gain strength. But after that meeting with his brother, which he found out from Jiraiya while in the hospital, he noticed the change in the Uchiha boy. As Kakashi continued training Naruto, he was a little worried for the future for all his students. Across the village. In a section of the village that was under repairs, the genin teams were already hard at work fixing up the home to be used for Naruto and Temari. The home wasn't too bad, although it was missing a whole side of it and the lawn had been torn up pretty bad, not to mention the brick wall around the property as well. The backyard was pretty much a write-off as well, but after a week things were looking better. Apparently one of the giant snake summons had gone through the area and the previous owner had been crushed under it. Finding the blood smears had upset a few of the kids, but that was long gone now. Currently they had fixed the missing pieces of the home, cleaned up the yard. Although there were some little improvements that still needed to be done, it was largely finished. It had been a long week full of work and the genins were taking a much needed break. Man, this has been a lot of work. Still can't believe that Naruto is getting stuck with this whole deal, Kiba said as he lightly petted Akamaru sitting on his lap. Kiba, perhaps that is not a good topic for the moment, Shino said as he glanced over at Hinata. Kiba looked over and winced, as the girl had been depressed all week long. They had been trying to cheer her up all week but without much success. Well, I for one hope that Temari can at least keep him in line, Sakura sighed as she sat down with a box lunch. He could use someone in his life will make him more mature. Oh man, don't start that, Shikamaru sighed as he walked over with his team. My mom does nothing but nag me and my dad all the time. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, although she did seem to be the bossy type of woman. That's not a nice thing to say. Ino yelled at him. And I got two bossy women in my life as it is, Shikamaru sighed. What was that? Ino said in a dangerous tone of voice. Well, at least he's getting a nice home out of it, Tenten said as she was walking with Neji towards the group. I mean, that's an improvement, isn't it, Sakura? Sakura had been to Naruto's apartment a few times. Although she saw that he had a decent place with nearly a full top floor, it was kind of lonely. She frowned a bit, remembering how besides the messes he sometimes left, there wasn't much other than the usual stuff. But then again, it was just him living there, so of course it was pretty simple living without much clutter that got accumulated from a family living in a home. She looked at the house and it was a nice place, not grand or anything, but the type of place she might like to live if she could ever afford it, but houses were expensive in the village. Yeah, I think that he'd like this place, she said to them all. I mean, he's got no family and at least now he's not going to live alone anymore. Yeah, but she's basically a stranger, Choji told them, eating his large lunch. I mean, we barely know anything about her. Mainly all we know is what we saw in the Chunin exams with her and her brother, Neji said, thinking about the sand trio. Sakura bit her lip as she thought about something else. Hey, how is Lee doing? I haven't been able to visit him lately with all the work. Tenten and Neji shared a concerned look before Tenten spoke up. He's doing okay, considering the doctors told him originally that he would never be a ninja again with his arm and leg so badly damaged. Then Tsunade-sama told him about all the bone fragments that are close to his spine. Tenten and Neji were both told the full story by Guy, who wanted his team to know just how serious the injuries were for Lee. Tenten felt sad that Lee would never be a ninja. It was heartbreaking really when she heard the news, given how much training and effort put into it. He was already at a disadvantage without being able to mold chakra enough to use ninjutsu or genjutsu skills. But he put his heart and soul into training to show the world that you could be a ninja even if you were like him. Neji himself had to admit that he actually missed Lee a bit. True, he and their sensei could be annoying, but they were a team, and it wasn't until just recently when he started to see just how much his team meant to him. After Naruto had beaten him and showed him that fate could be changed, and reading the final words of his father given to him by his uncle, he had a lot of time to think on things. One of them was his treatment of his cousin. He had been wrong to blame her for the rift between the main branch and his branch. Looking at his cousin now, he actually felt for her pain, and he also had a lot of time to make up for all the years he had been clouded by his anger. Another recently was that Lee was the closest thing to a best friend he had, not that he would ever admit that to anyone. But the boy kept pushing himself, and the skills he saw in the Chunin exams showed him just how far Lee had come in such a few years. He actually admired Lee's dedication and skills, and how it seemed that Lee would never be a ninja again, and it actually made him angry at how cruel life was. He knew, of course, how cruel life could get, but something like this just didn't sit well with him. So, he's never going to be a ninja again? Sakura asked, shocked to hear this. She felt so bad for Lee for the same reasons. Well, I heard that Tsunade-sama is working on it. Tenten hoped if anyone could heal Lee, it would be her idol. Yeah, I heard that's one of the things that Naruto brought her back to the village to do, Shikamaru stated, remembering a meeting with Naruto after he had been made a Chunin. Hence why he was in charge of this little project while their Jonin teachers were off doing who knew what. Naruto had been taking a break from his studies, and they caught up a little before he had to go back for his lessons. Well then, I hope Lee gets better then, Sakura said. At first she hadn't liked the boy, but it was just another thing that had changed during the Chunin exams. It seemed that moment had changed all their lives in some way or another. She had seen how hard Lee fought to not only save her, but during that fight with Gaara. Suddenly something hit her as she looked at Tenten and Neji. Hey, are you two going to be okay with Temari? I mean, after what her brother did to Lee and all, plus she did beat you two, Tenten. Sakura asked, worried. Neji crossed his arms with that usual unreadable expression on his face. I may not like her or Gaara, but she's being forced into this as well, I would think. She's being forced to leave her village to one where she will most likely face hostility, as I doubt many have forgotten or forgiven sooner. Tenten sighed. Okay, so she beat me. I may not like it or how everyone keeps talking about it, but he makes some good points. She's going to have a hard enough time as it is, and I can't blame her for what Gaara did. Sakura still was scared of Gaara. She had seen him transforming into that monster until she had blacked out. She wasn't sure how to react around Temari, and she really hoped she didn't have to see Gaara anytime soon. She didn't choose this, Hinata thought to herself. I've been so sad that I'll never get the chance to tell Naruto how I feel that I never thought about Temari. She's being forced into this most likely, and she'll be alone in a village that will most likely hate her. It's not like she's stealing Naruto or even had her sights on him. I don't remember her even looking at him all that much. I shouldn't blame her for things beyond her control either. I've been blaming her for this just like how most will blame her for how her village betrayed ours and attacked. Although she was still hurting over this, it wasn't right to just ignore others. She knew that Naruto didn't like the idea and who would. Although she would have secretly loved the idea of being arranged to marry Naruto, it just seemed like that dream was gone forever. But the thing she admired in Naruto the most was getting right back up and keep on trying as he never gave up. Well, she shouldn't give up either. She may never have Naruto's feelings for her, but she didn't want to ruin the friendship she had with him. Yes, she would hurt, but she should be there for them as well. We should be nice to her then, Hinata said as she surprised everyone at that moment. She's going to be all alone and both her and Naruto-kun will need support for this. Were his friends and this isn't easy for him either. Yeah, guess you got a point there, Kiba said, throwing his arms behind his head. Hey, where is Sasuke-kun? Ino asked, looking around to see that he was the only genin not here. Well, I asked if he wanted to join us, but Sakura always asked him and every day he said no. Or, why won't he join us? Ino sighed. Because it's too troublesome for him, Shikamaru muttered. For the entire time the attitude of the Uchiha was getting on his nerves. It wasn't that he wasn't doing the work, in fact it was just that the boy made it no secret that he would rather be training than doing this, even if it was for his own teammate. Shikamaru was just glad this was nearly over with, a new coat of paint and a little maintenance work and it should be good to go, at least he hoped. 2 days later, Naruto Uzumaki had been having a nice dream about all-you-can-eat ramen. He had been on his 32nd bowl when one of the most evil creations in the world went off, his alarm clock. The hellish ringing woke him up with a start and a minor heart attack as he yelled out in surprise. While struggling with his blanket, he got entangled and fell off his bed onto the floor. He sighed, taking this as a sign that this wasn't going to be a good day. Hey, wait, wasn't there something I'm doing today? Naruto muttered to himself. When he got up and looked around, he saw that his place was cleaner than normal and lots of boxes. Oh right, I'm moving today, he sighed. Apparently the new home was finished and he was to be moved in and get it ready for Temari as they would be using it. He sighed. Although the idea of owning an actual house was really cool for him, he would miss this place. Sure, it wasn't much to look at, but he had room, a small garden that he liked to take care of, and no one really bothered him. It had been the only home he had known all his life that he could really remember, but now he had to say goodbye to the place. Well, one last meal, Naruto smiled as he did his usual normal rituals before going to the kitchen and making a cup of instant ramen. After he was done and did some final cleaning before he waited for the others to show up, they were to help move him in, not that he really needed it as he could always make an army of shadow clones, but he didn't know the way to his home anyway. He waited around until there was a knock on his door. He opened it and smiled, seeing his teammates there. Hey there, I'm all ready. That's good to hear, Kakashi said, walking in and seeing everything was ready. Good job packing up. So can we get this over with? Sasuke asked. Yeah, I might as well move in. I want to get in some real training before Temari comes. Naruto said, excited to get this over with. Sure, Kakashi said, picking up a box. Well, now you two get something. Naruto, you think you can handle the rest? You know it. Naruto grinned as he created a small army of shadow clones. He gathered up everything as they made their way to his new place. Naruto wanted to know if he missed anything, so he went to Sakura to talk to, given that she was a girl and they liked to talk, and of course Sasuke wouldn't talk much anyway. It was nice talking with her, but he kind of missed being able to try and impress her and trying to get her to notice him in a way that she would agree to a date with him. He interlay sighed, knowing that he would have to give up his feelings for the girl. It wasn't easy after all, he liked her since they started school together. "Hey Sakura-chan," he asked, suddenly cutting her off from her telling him about how the others were doing. "Yes, Naruto. Can you promise me something?" "Ah, okay, what is it?" Naruto was silent a moment, looking at the ground at his feet. "Promise me that no matter what, that we'll still be friends and teammates." Sakura blinked a few times at the question before she made a small smile. "Of course, you Barker, we'll always be friends and teammates no matter what." Naruto gave one of his rare real smiles at that. It was nice to know that no matter what he could count on his friends. They continued on, and just when the shadow clones were starting to complain about all the stuff they had to carry, they arrived. Naruto looked on at the place. To him, he couldn't believe he was living here. Sure, it wasn't like the houses you find in the richer parts of town, but to him the place was great. When he asked his sensei if this was the place and he was told it was, he took off running through the gate. He couldn't believe it, but he actually had a yard. He could train all he wanted now. In the back there was a larger one that could easily be made into a neat little training area too. Temari was with Baki and her brothers as they were escorting her to Konoha. A part of her kept waking up every day on the trip here, thinking that it had been all a dream what was happening. It just seemed so unreal to her, but the closer she got to the village, the more real it seemed. They stayed in inns on the way, but each day and every step just seemed to fill her a little bit more of dread. In truth, she loved being a Tsunade, and she loved her village, even given how it had treated her youngest brother and what had been done to him. But the fact was, she was no longer going to proudly wear the Tsunade symbol around her neck, but one of the leaf. She fingered the protector that she liked to wear around her neck another time, knowing that soon she would never wear it proudly for the world to see. "How are you holding up?" Kankuro asked her. "The same," she replied as they walked on. "I just wish I knew a bit more about this guy. I mean, was the whole loudmouth idiot thing some kind of act?" He just shrugged. "Don't know, but if it is, it's a good one. Still don't see why Gaara liked the guy so much." Still couldn't get him to elaborate. She sighed, as it was more of a statement than a question. No matter how much they tried, they couldn't get him to say why exactly. It was almost like whatever happened between him and the blonde was private, but then again, Gaara also wasn't the most open person even before his new change of heart. "Well, looks like we're here," Baki said, breaking Temari from her thoughts. She sighed, seeing the massive gates. When she first saw them, she thought them impressive. Now looking at them, she realized she would be seeing them for the rest of her life as she left and returned to the village. She could see several people already waiting by the gates and guessed it was their welcoming committee. She tried to get ready for this, but in all honesty, how could you get ready for something like this? She just hoped that with time she could learn to accept her fate and deal with it. By the massive gates to the village stood the Hokage, with Shizune, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and just joining them was Kakashi. "Kakashi, where were you?" Tsunade demanded, as the man was already late, but that was nothing new with him. "Sorry, I had to help a little girl find her cat," he chuckled, and rubbing the back of his head. "Lair!" Naruto and Sakura yelled at him. "Now that isn't a nice thing to say to your sensei," Kakashi said to them. "Well, maybe if you showed up on time for once, we would have more respect for you," Sakura said, crossing her arms as Naruto was nodded his head in agreement. Then she turned to her orange-clad teammate and sighed, looking at him. "Seriously, Naruto, couldn't you find something decent to wear? I mean, you want to make a good impression, don't you? What's wrong with this?" I always wear this, Naruto said, looking down at the orange and blue jumpsuit. Don't you have anything that isn't so orange? I like orange, he said in defense of his favorite color. He didn't know why, but he just liked his suits because they had so much of his favorite color, plus they were durable, warm, and had lots of pockets, and for all the pranks he pulled over the years that came in handy. Enough, Tsunade said, getting the kids' attention. Looks like they're arriving. They waited as the four sand shinobi came up to them as Tsunade took a step forward. Greetings. As the new Hokage, I formally welcome you to the village hidden in the leaves. Temari was shocked that this was the famous Tsunade the Sannin. This woman looked no older than 25, but the reports she had read said that this woman was supposed to be over 50. If she was, she looked amazing, and looking at the huge chest she had on her, she had to wonder if those were even natural. She looked at her other companions and she could see that Baki was trying not to stare. Gaara looked like he was staring at Naruto, but without the bloodlust she normally would have expected. Her other brother, however, was making no attempt to not look at the Hokage's cleavage. She smacked him on the back of his head. He gave a look, but she gave him a hard glare before he opened his mouth. Naruto snickered when the guy in the makeup got smacked for looking at Tsunade, although he suddenly got elbowed by Sakura as he looked at her confused. Are you supposed to say something? She whispered. Oh right, Naruto said, remembering the greeting that Kakashi made him memorize. He took a few steps forward to Tsunade and gave a bow to her. I greet you and I wish you welcome and safety. Temari wasn't expecting a formal Tsunade greeting, but she returned the bow. I am thankful for the hospitality and the honor. Naruto then smiled up at them and noticed Gaara was walking towards him. He stiffened a bit, but something was different this time. He wasn't getting that creepy feeling and of terror like the last times he met the guy. He couldn't place it, but the guy just seemed more normal than last time, although it was hard to tell with that mostly blank expression on his face. Ah, hey, Naruto said, not sure what to say to him. Naruto Uzumaki, Gaara said, but there was no malice in the tone. Will you take care of my older sister like you would those precious to you? Naruto blinked in confusion before he smiled. Of course I will. It's a promise and I always keep my promises. Gaara nodded his head. Thank you, and for what you did as well. Huh? Naruto asked, once more confused. You showed me where true strength comes from, Gaara said simply, and Naruto got a huge smile on his face. The others who were watching were just as confused. Temari and Kankuro didn't know what to make of the youngest sibling. Kakashi was looking on in interest, although he had a small smile under his mask. Tsunade and Shizune were wondering what the story was behind all this. Sasuke just didn't look pleased, mainly because watching the two of them only reminded him of how he had failed to defeat Gaara and Naruto had. Sakura was caught between confused and nervous being around the boy that had tried to her and her team the last time she saw him. Although she couldn't help but notice that the guy seemed less intense, she supposed the word would be, although she still wasn't exactly easy to be near him. Images of what he had done to Lee replayed in her mind as well. Well then, Tsunade said, breaking the moment, I think Naruto should show Temari their new home. The three of you, I've made arrangements to be put up in one of the hotels in the village. Tomorrow at 10, I want everyone in my office as we officially swear Temari into the Leaf Village and also her place in Team 7. Huh, she's going to be in my team? Kakashi asked. If you weren't late all the time you'd know that, Tsunade told him, a small vein growing on her head. Since there are no open slots and given the circumstances, I've allowed her to be placed in your team. She also secretly hoped that it would help Naruto and Temari get to know each other better through the experiences. Kakashi rubbed his chin. Okay, that shouldn't be a problem. But I'll need a week to evaluate them and get their teamwork up to speed before any major missions. D ranks should be okay for now, but I need to see what she can do and think of new team tactics with her as well. Tsunade nodded her head as it sounded okay for her. Hey, shouldn't you have more stuff? Naruto asked Temari, seeing him only carrying travel bags and such. All my stuff is sealed up in scrolls since there is no way I want to haul all that crap all the way here, she told him. Naruto remembered seeing Tenten use that in the Chunin exams in her fight with Temari. That girl had used a lot of weapons and he had forgotten about that. Hey, is that hard to do using sealing scrolls? Naruto asked her. You don't know how to do that. Most ninja in Suna learn that when they're on a genin team. That caused the members of Team 7 and Tsunade to glare at Kakashi, who at least had the decency to look a bit embarrassed. I kept meaning to, but they never really needed it, so. You kept putting it off, Tsunade said, glaring a bit harder at the man. Kakashi, I know this is your first genin team, but you should at least get them up to date, or I might have to consider other ways to motivate you. Kakashi didn't know what she would let alone could do, but he nodded his head. He mentally sighed as it just meant less reading time and relaxing. Uzumaki home. Temari looked at the place that was to be her new home. All in all, it wasn't too bad. Looked like they would have some privacy, at least something she liked to have now and then, although it was odd for her to see so much green. It was the same when she first came here during the Chunin exams. She wasn't used to this climate either. It was too cool for her tastes, but during the exams she did adjust to it, and after a while it wasn't so bad. The sun didn't scorch you as badly, the humidity was a lot more bearable, but it was still different. She had no idea what it was even like to have a yard, as the water to maintain grass was a luxury that people didn't bother with, as not dying from thirst was more important. Well, come on, this place is great, Naruto said, smiling, eager to show her around. There's this nice backyard that I think we can turn into a nice training area. That is, if that's okay with you. Temari shrugged, although it did sound like a nice idea to her. Whatever the shorter blonde was, at least he was somewhat practical. Sounds okay to me, but can I put my stuff away first? Oh sure. Naruto led her inside, and the place obviously would need work, Temari thought, looking around. It certainly could use a woman's touch, plus if she was doomed to live here she might as well make it her own. She took one of the sealing scrolls and placed it on a table. It held things that could easily go down here, and she could set it up later. Naruto led her upstairs to where the bedrooms were, and a part of her was dreading this. Would he force her to sleep in the same bed as him? Sure, they were going to be married and she was duty-bound to certain parts, like at least having one child and the things that came with it. But she sure as hell wasn't going to be some trophy wife either, or subservient to his every wishes. Just as she was about to voice her strong opinions on the matter, he spoke up first. This is your room, mine is just across the hall. Naruto smiled at her. Temari blinked a few times, a little surprised he had given her her own room. My own room. Well, yeah, Naruto smiled nervously as he scratched the back of his head. I mean, I know we'll be married, but we don't even know each other all that well. I didn't think you'd like sharing a room with a stranger, and it wouldn't really be right to force you to, so I figured to give you the large room, and I get the smaller one. Temari had to admit not only was she surprised, but she was impressed with his decency in the matter. Although there was one question she had left: so why did you give me the larger room then? Well, I figured you would have more stuff, you know, coming from a family and all. He shrugged, and she nodded, also remembering the report that said he was an orphan. She wasn't sure how to feel about that, although sad she didn't really know him that well to really feel much. Besides, girls tend to have a lot more stuff than boys. He grinned, remembering some of the stories Kiba told of his older sister and mother. Temari's eye twitched. Just when he was starting to earn from points with her, he had to go and say something stupid like that. Naruto noticed the glare that she was giving him and shrunk a little under her gaze. "What did I say?" he muttered. "Barker," she muttered, going into her room, leaving Naruto to wonder just why girls were so hard to understand. She went through setting up her room. The sealed scrolls she had mainly had a lot of her stuff from back in Suna. She gathered up everything she had, since it wasn't likely she would go home other than a visitor. So she got her bed, a nice large one with a soft mattress. Sometimes she needed to relax, and this was one of them: a dresser, vanity mirror, and her clothes and stuff. She still had her equipment scroll that held all her ninja gear and things she needed to repair her fan and the replacement fan too. She decided to leave that for later and placed it aside. "Hey, what's this for?" She heard Naruto's voice and she was starting to wonder if she should worry. She went down to the first level as she saw him looking at the scroll she had left. He had it open, looking at it. "What do you think you're doing?" "Sorry," he said quickly, trying to move it back to where he found it. "It just looked so cool and I wanted to see how it worked." Temari was once again wondering if he really was like this or if it was an act, although she didn't know what he would bother to keep it up around her. "Fine, I'll show you, but in return you got to help me set things up." Naruto eagerly agreed with her as he watched as she used the scroll to bring out the items in it. It was basic stuff like a couch, lamp, and several other things. Naruto helped her to set up the living room, and by the end of it things were looking a bit better now. She put up a spare picture of her and her brothers up as the place felt a bit better with it. After that, Naruto showed her around the rest of it. She was surprised by the backyard, as he had been right, it was a good place for her outdoor training area. The rest was kind of empty, but she knew that they had the rest of their lives to fill it up. That thought was a strange one, although not very pleasant. There was a small onsen as well, although it looked to be just newly repaired. Naruto told her that the previous owner was said to have some water jutsu to make it. It wasn't very large, looking only to fit a few people, but it would be great for those days when she was sore from training. When he said how he wanted to turn one room into a place to put all their ninja gear, she once again liked the idea. When he showed her the room, it wasn't much. Small, one window, a small closet, and apparently he had started. There was a self-made shelf with kunai, some wire, extra pouch and holder. The closet, she could easily place her fan and a couple of others if she got more. All in all, it was a nice starting place, and she had to wonder just how a kid so hyperactive and seemingly an idiot had some practical sense. It just seemed the more she got to know him, the more confusing he was, as nothing made sense. Although there was one thing she didn't know about Naruto, and that was when they got to the kitchen and when she took a look at what they had to eat, she was dumbfounded by what she found. The fridge held a few things, but there were 2 cupboards full of nothing but ramen. There was instant ramen and ingredients to make your own, and in all kinds of flavors as well. "How the hell can you eat all this stuff?" she blurted out. "Why not?" Naruto asked her. "Ramen is the best food there is." Temari gave him a level look. "No wonder you're short if that's all you eat." "What's that supposed to mean?" he shouted, as Temari once again wasn't sure if she should anger the boy or not. She had seen him and knew that in a fight she couldn't beat him. I just mean that without proper food you can stunt your growth," she told him in the same type of tone she used with Gaara when he had been crazy. Naruto wasn't sure why she seemed so strange, but he didn't think nothing of it, but still he didn't get her point. Ramen was the best food there was, plus it was easy to make and cheap.